Was she enjoying KZN as much this weekend? I hope so. Camille Heron, welcome back. We missed you last year. Great to have you back. Please come and join us. It's about 150 meters away from where you finished 2 years ago. Canaday, always a wonderful champion to have with us, and a lot of talk about her form at the moment. Right, let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, she shocked the field in 2018 to win with a...
Some time away in the French Alps, training with some of my teammates. So that was incredible, and yes, we are here now and ready to tackle the road.
Listen, just on a lighter side, you have mentioned once or twice on social media that you're interested in multi-sport. I can introduce you to someone over here who can help you with that.
Oh, absolutely. I brought my book for her to sign.
Okay.
Green. We have beat those I'm talking about Hi there, it's the day before the race. Nice run out here on the beach. You can see Durban in the background there on the coastline. Nice and warm out here, beautiful day. Yeah, ready to go. Go Sage! How you doing, man? Enjoy. Yeah. Come say. Well done, Sage. Well done, Brute. Well done, Sage! I watch your YouTube videos!
Come on, Sage! We're rooting for you! Come on, man! How's it going?
Hey there, so 5 days after the race, you saw some race footage there. Thanks to everyone who contributed. Sorry I couldn't get all the footage compiled. A lot of you, if you send me a message on Instagram, I don't always get them because if I don't follow you on Instagram, then it goes to my spam folder and I don't get notifications or see all those messages, especially on Instagram. So sorry if I missed your message. I really appreciate those that contributed to get that footage. You could see how kind of what the course looks like, how the race played out, and dynamics, and I'll talk about it in this race report vlog, as well as show you some footage of my other times in South Africa, briefly going to Cape Town for a few days after the race. So it's not just me talking, but I'll try to be brief here. Disappointed with the race. I have pretty high expectations in all my races, and we'll get into that. 23rd place, top American, I'm pretty sure, but definitely in 6:01, 6:02, over 6 hour time again, similar time to what I ran in 2015. Of course, the course was about 1 kilometer shorter, so I'm going to chalk it up as a worse performance, and not placing as well either. I was 15th in 2015. If you take out the guys that tripped positive drug tests on the day, I was really 13th in 2015. So, expectations were to be at least top 10. Ideally, going top 5 would have been a lot better, and I truly believe I have the potential to do that. Maybe not, I don't know. I haven't been close to it yet, but, top 5, running under 5:40 or 5:45 as a time roughly would have been a really, really good race for me. Being top 10, I would have been happy with, and, under 5:50 would have been great. I was far from that. I went out at that pace and I couldn't hold it. I have no excuses. It was great competition as always. Amazing course, amazing atmosphere. Comrades is the longest history ultra in the world, largest ultra, most competitive ultra in the world, but it is a road ultra. It's a lot different from the trails, and it really is hard to compare. That being said, there's some any service, any distance guys that really mixed it up well. Henry, I'm not pronouncing his last name right, Anzio, I believe, got 6th or 7th place. He's a Golden Trail Series type of runner from Finland, as well as Elov, also from Sweden, who finished ahead of me. Shout out to them, and of course Gerda, who won and the women's race and set the course record. She's also running for Team Nedbank, passed me with like 10 miles to go, 16K to go, and set the women's course record by over 10 minutes, I believe, fastest women's time in history. Under 6 hours is incredible performance. And so, yeah, I was disappointed with how my race went, and to regress like that was discouraging. I'll try to come up with reasons of maybe why that happened in my mind here, but realize, yeah, the self-coaching bias is there. This is my perspective in my vlog on how things went down. I try to be quantitative with the data and scientific about it, but I don't have all the answers. It's not a sure thing. People like to throw out criticisms with my diet, and we'll get into that. What else did people say? Not having an outside perspective, an outside coach, things like that, going out too fast, not having enough carbs, or not being fat burning enough. That kind of goes into the whole diet thing, not getting enough protein as a vegetarian vegan, things like that. People are pretty critical with, and I'll try to answer some of the questions I think that people have asked or you'll comment on based on my Instagram post from 2 days ago. Kind of know the mindset here, but race started out. It was weird conditions, kind of rainy. It rained overnight, so the road was a little slippery. And climbing out of Durban, it was a bit foggy, which was really cool, but also it kind of made it discouraging because I couldn't see the packs ahead of me. I wanted to go out more conservative. If you look at the Strava data, I went out more conservative. I had a plan. I was going to go out more conservative, but not too slow. Try to split the halfway point into 50, which I did exactly. But going out slow at Comrades means you're really conservative. You're back in like 100th place, 80th place, 60th place, still moving up through halfway. I think I was in 40th place maybe. So there's going to be guys dropping out ahead of you. Guys are going to hopefully come back, but you're just trying to run the splits. So monitoring my heart rate, I had a nutrition plan, a Spring Energy Canaday in my Nathan belt pack. Enter code SAGE10 at myspringenergy.com for a discount. Taking the Canaday in, and I was lucky enough, I was running for a local club, Team Nedbank. Very generous support because they had volunteers, affiliated with the team, handing me fluid bottles, special fluid bottles. This is something you get as an elite, being on the elite club. So thanks to Nedbank, every 10K or so 7 bottles or so, which I filled with a carbohydrate drink, electrolytes as well, to stay hydrated, but it was in this 18 ounce, I don't know what that is in liters, Nathan handheld bottle that I could grab from the volunteer and carry with me for a kilometer or two and sip on that. So I was trying to take in well over 300 kilocalories per hour. mostly carb-based. You know, if you do the math on it, if you're taking 400 calories an hour, which would be a lot. I'm not sure if my stomach could handle that. That would be 100 grams of carb per hour, because it's 4 calories per gram of carbohydrates. So you're basically dividing by 4. And if you're doing all carbohydrates, you know, that's kind of the what I wanted, was a lot of carbs. And I was planning that pretty well, except doing the math on it, looking back on it now, benefit of hindsight, the aid stations, the support wasn't exactly every 10K. And because of the rolling uphill nature of the course, the time intervals of taking in those the drink mix as well as my Canaday got a little thrown off. And it gets a little thrown off, and if you don't do the math exactly, it gets a little confusing while you're in the heat of the moment, especially running in the dark for the first couple hours. And so maybe I wasn't actually taking in more than 300 kilocalories per hour of mostly carbs for some of those hours early on. I wanted to take probably closer to 350 calories per hour of mostly carb stuff, but I might have been a little short. And when I look back on it now, I was feeling hungry, which is really bad. You don't want to feel hungry early on in an ultra. And I was thinking, gosh, my stomach could handle more, but I don't have more on me to take in, especially with like a heavy carbohydrate dose. So, you know, that's kind of a rookie mistake. And, you know, in the heat of the moment, I thought I was doing things right. But when I look back on it, it could have been kind of a costly mistake. I was slowly running low on my glycogen stores, doing all the hard climbing in the first half. That being said, my legs were not feeling real great from the start. That's usually pretty typical in a marathon or ultra, but once you warm up after like 10K, 15K, hopefully you try to feel a good groove. I never felt that good groove. I just kind of felt tired. I felt like my form was off. I felt a little stiff, and I chalked that up to, you know, looking back in my taper, a week out from the race, I did a medium long run, maybe a little too hard. I should have eased off a little bit more. So, you know, maybe residual fatigue. I don't know. I thought I tapered right. I really, again, I'm trying to come up with logical reasons of why my legs kind of felt dead. But, you know, there was that. I felt like I wasn't moving efficiently early on, which is very costly. I was also monitoring my heart rate on the wrist strap of my Garmin, which was actually reading pretty accurate, I think. I was thinking, gosh, you could probably hold in the 150s for the whole race. But, you know, if you trip over 160 on some of these climbs, you're getting kind of an up-tempo range, not lactate threshold, but, you know, I only held 163, 164 for all of Rotterdam. So I was thinking, gosh, if you trip 160 on some of these uphills, that's burning a little hot. So I try to manage my effort there. And I was pacing it exactly how I wanted. This king off Steve Way, 215 marathoner, top 10 at Comrades on both an up and down year. Super experienced guy at Comrades and, you know, World 100K and things like that. Cause he was running ahead of me in this pack, and I was slowly gaining on him and caught up to Steve Way. And I was like, okay, this will be good. And we were about 32K, 33K in, over 20 miles in. And he looks over at me and he says, my hamstring's totally out. I feel like I've pulled it. I'm going to drop out now. And so then he's gone. And so I had some other guys to work with, but then things start really thinning out with the top guys in that pack, and you're kind of keying off alone. Henry came up and flew past me, just before halfway, and I thought maybe I should go with him, but I wasn't really feeling that great. So I was like, I better be more conservative. And so I kind of keyed off of him, and he, you know, he went on and had that amazing race, finished, 6th. And, I had, you know, the two Swedes from, my Nedbank team also right behind me, but I didn't know that, as well as, Colin, I believe, who was also a Nedbank, Canadian runner behind me. And some other top Americans, Brandon Fellows and those guys. But, you know, you're really spread out. You're really starting to spread out in the second half, and it was getting lonely. And about 35, 36 miles in, I wasn't feeling real good. I wasn't feeling like I was moving well in the downhills. I still feel like I needed more high intensity, speed work and more efficiency work. The strength was there. I felt fueled, except I was feeling hungry. And so those are red flags there, right? The quads are starting to go on the downhills a little bit. There's still 4,000 feet of downhill at Comrades, so it is kind of tough. And, yeah, I just, didn't feel like my form was clicking well, wasn't activating the glutes or hamstrings very well, although things felt on edge, and that's usually a sign that you're going to bonk pretty hard. And of course, 36, 37 miles in, I feel that total body shut down. that kind of lonely depletion and just aching legs. The muscles are just done turning into cement. And you're like, gosh, I have 20 miles to go. I have 32K to go, and I feel like this. And, you know, seriously, if you look at the Strava data, the Strava splits there, it's a massive slowdown, because I start walking. I just start walking. I'm looking for the next aid station. And honestly, mentally, I kind of checked out there because I was like, you're having a horrible day again. It's like deja vu to 2015, except worse because you went out slower, and now you're bonking even harder. And I was looking for a med tent to drop out in. And I don't take DNFs lightly. I didn't want to drop out really, but I think I was just having a little self-pity party for myself, a pathetic pity party for myself. And, you know, I took a couple shots of Coke though real quick at those aid stations because that's always a strategy to try to get back into it. And because I reacted to that Coke a little, it does make me think that I was pretty low on blood sugar at that point, which makes sense for the negative thinking. You get in a negative thought cycle when you start bonking, as well as your legs turning to cement. But I was like, gosh, you're having a bad day. This could be epically bad. It's going to be embarrassing. You're not going to run the time you want to run. You're going to not place very well. The top females are probably going to catch you. You know, these things are going through your mind, and you're having a bad day, and you want to just pull the plug on it. But it's Comrades, and I don't take DNFs lightly. That being said, you know, if you're going to have a setback, if you're going to have a major health setback and injury, I totally think you should drop out. I'm totally a big believer in DNFs. You don't want to risk your health and well-being, and I'm not into that death before DNF type of horrible mindset that some ultra runners have. It's not all about finishing, but what really motivated me, truth be told too, is right before that point, or around that point, I don't even know, I wasn't thinking clearly, I saw this runner, and he only had one leg. He started ahead of us because he had an early start, but he's out there on this course, 55 miles of rolling uphill, right, thousands of feet of climbing, and he's on crutches. His legs amputated well above the knee. He didn't have a artificial leg or carbon fiber, nothing fancy. Just one leg, hobbling with crutches, and he's out there going to try to finish this race. And here I am having this pity party for myself because I'm bonking a little bit. And I was just like, gosh, this guy's, you know, the true inspiration. Like, if he's out there trying to finish, like, you have to try to finish. Like, it was just amazing to see and just really inspiring to see. And, you know, this guy's a real badass for doing this. And, you know, I couldn't imagine just, you know, doing it on crutches. Like, it would be so much harder. So, you know, I started running again. And, you know, I had some walking patches in there for the next 5K. You could see the splits on Strava. Like, it was a big slowdown. I got passed by a lot of guys. Gerda came up behind me and passed me with 10 miles to go, 16K to go. I could hear the helicopter, the press truck. She just came flying by on this downhill. And I really wasn't moving on well on the downhill, so I wasn't proud of that. And yeah, I just was able to, you know, take in my fluids still, taking the carbs, not really have any stomach issues, which means I probably could have taken in more, in retrospect. Probably should have taken in more. I'm burning it hot, but it's also just, you know, you're trying to do something your body wasn't ready to do, and it reacts to you. You rig up, right? And having that mental pity party, you know, maybe I could have finished stronger. I didn't even realize I was close to 6 hours when I was coming in, though. I was kind of out of it. So it wasn't like I was looking at my watch. I'm like, oh, you're going to run really close to 6 hours. I was just thinking, catch the next guy in front of you. I caught like one guy in the last 400 meters, and the competitive juices were still flowing. The determination to reach the finish line was there, but the fight was gone. And, you know, it could have easily been a lot worse. I could have finished 50th place. So to be, you know, 23rd place, still okay, but very far from being top 10, very far from being top 5, and very far from competing for the win. The time gap was huge. So, not satisfied with this race. And it's not that I'm super critical. I think, I've always been kind of critical, at least of myself, and kind of pessimistic, I guess, trying to be a realist here. But it's because you always want that self-improvement. And, you know, I could have met my goal of being top 10, but I would have been unhappy that I wasn't top 5 if I wasn't top 5, right? You could run a PR, but then you're still unsatisfied because you still want to improve your personal best again, right? 90% of the races I run in my whole career, and I've run hundreds of distance races, I'm kind of dissatisfied with, right? There's always this itch to improve and to do better and to close it down faster. And you always think in the back of your mind, well, maybe I could have kicked a little harder the last 10 miles, 16K, or the last kilometer or whatever. And so, I'm not being like overly hard. I was proud of finishing. I was proud that I didn't drop out, because it was really hard. But at the same time, it's extremely disappointing. I want to be hard on myself because I have these high expectations, and I do want to be top 10 in this race because it's such an amazing experience. But, the first thing people comment is like, Sage, you sucked it up. Why don't you try eating meat? Why don't you go low carb or fat burning and all this? And, I think some people didn't realize that I've been vegetarian my whole life, so I've never really had meat. Everything I've done in running up to this point has been without any meat. When I ran 2:16 in the marathon, when I set ultra records and won races, and it's always been without meat. So I don't believe that meat is limiting me. I mean, maybe it is, but in my mind, when you break it down scientifically, you say, okay, what does the human body need to thrive? What macronutrients, micronutrients, what amino acid blend? And you could get that now, in this day and age, in this climate, from plant-based sources. That's, my whole thing with the science on it. And, a lot of people have really thrived on a plant-based vegetarian diet or near vegetarian diet, and especially a high-carb diet. Eating less processed food doesn't mean you eat a lot of sugar and desserts and ice cream and beer, but, eating a lot of antioxidants and vitamins, but making sure that you're having a well-rounded diet. And, I'll admit maybe my diet's not as healthy. It's not as healthy as Sandy's, that's for sure. So maybe I need to up my game there. Maybe I do need to look at my amino acid profile and get my blood checked more and make sure my B12 is up to snuff and my iron. I do get my B12 and iron checked all the time though, and it is up to snuff. So, there's that. But, people are like, oh, you don't eat enough red meat, you don't get enough protein. Yeah, I think you get plenty of protein. I don't think that's the issue. It's interesting because as a vegan, you're kind of in a minority diet. And so when other people who eat a more normal diet, or people who eat red meat a lot, or any meat, I guess, they get injured, they have a hamstring tear and they drop out, or they have a bad race, or they, have a health issue, or they have a stress fracture, or they get injured all the time. But no one says to them, oh, maybe you should stop eating meat, right? It's kind of this weird double standard, I feel like, at least. And, but it's part of having a minority diet, I think, and preaching about it. So, I'm open to that criticism, but at the same time realize, people don't say like, oh, this person gets injured all the time, they eat a lot of meat. Could it be because of the meat, right? Does your acidic diet, the pH of your diet, change your system, your blood, so you don't absorb calcium as well, and you get more breaks in your bones, you get a hamstring pull, hamstring tear, and you have to have all these issues? People, I think, should question that with all sorts of diets. You need a well-rounded diet as an athlete to perform at your best. That is for sure, though. And then, with my body weight, I need to take in probably a lot of carbs because I burn it hot, but I'm a bigger type of guy. Believe it or not, in the elite world of distance running, I am actually on the heavier side, I would say. Some of these guys that line up on the starting line, they're good 10, 20 kilos less than me. Well, 10 to 15 kilos less than me, right? So it was like 20 pounds, 30 pounds less than me. People are like, oh, you're around the same height as Galen Rupp. You're not, 5'11", 6 foot, 130. Well, I don't have a narrow pelvis. Like I got some childbearing hips here, right? The bone's not going to be shrinking anytime soon. You can only go off your body fat percentage. And if you're lean, body fat's lean, I was born with some pecs. I don't lift weights with my upper body at all, but, it's pretty hard to slim down. Maybe I could eat super healthy and cut, 5 pounds off here and there, but I've been the same body weight since I was in high school and college and when I ran all my PRs. So I don't think, Sage are like, oh, you fat ass, you need to lose weight. I try to cut out some desserts and beer maybe to stay trim, but I don't think that's really the issue. Again, it's something as an elite athlete, it's a very sensitive topic, but, I'm not going to weigh the same as Galen Rupp. He's maybe an inch taller than me, but his pelvis is really narrow and he's got really skinny legs. That being said, I didn't have to have surgery because I got injured. I haven't been injured at all in my 20 years of running, right? Knock on wood somewhere. Is this wood? No, that's not would, but you know, I don't have the injury, and I've done that all on vegetarian diets. So, you know, the weights, it's up in the air there. Other criticism, people say like, oh, you know, you need a coach, you need more advice. And that could very well be true. I admit to self-bias, coach myself, I come up with really bad ideas, like doing the Mont Blanc Marathon in 3 weeks after Comrades. It's probably a horrible idea. If I was coaching an athlete, I'd be like, don't do that. That's a horrible idea. Coach Sandy, when I got advice from Coach Sandy last year, heading into my marathon, Boston, I was probably the most fit I'd been in a really long time. I got a 15K PR on the roads. I don't race 15K on the roads that much, but I beat my Boilermaker time on a hilly course. The Shamrock Run 15K last year in Portland, one of the more competitive races I actually won last year. I was following more of Coach Sandy's advice, so that, you know, that was really good. You know, people say, Sage, you suck, you haven't had a good race in a really long time. When was the last time you had a good race? Well, I said, well, you know, that race last year and you know, being top 10 in the Golden Trail Series was a goal of mine, and I achieved that, right? Doing any service, any distance, and mixing it up all summer, probably over racing all summer, still achieved that goal against Killian et al. In those guys. Of course, I want to place better in the Golden Trail Series this year, though. But I ran well at the Jungfrau Marathon. I got a course personal best, the Jungfrau Marathon in September last year, 5th place there. So, you know, I wouldn't say I've run horribly all this time. But I always want to do better. I'm always pushing for the next level, the next best, better version of yourself, right? Self-improvement, trying to stay in the game, trying to stay healthy long term. So, you know, I don't want to coach because there's our coaching business and there's a lot of self-pride there. But there's also, I just don't like taking orders. I don't like listening to other people. And the main reason is I've had coaches coach me and restrict me all throughout high school, all throughout college, all at Hanson's. And yeah, I ran some really good races. I ran my personal bests in standard distances in those times, but I also ran a lot of really bad races in those times. And whenever I ran a bad race, I'd always blame the coach, and I'd be pissed off at the coach. And I said, why, your training made me run this horrible race. And I'd rather not do that. I'd rather just blame myself and say, oh, your own training made you run a horrible race. Like, I like the self blame and being responsible for just myself and following my own schedule. But yeah, there's a lot of self-bias. There's a lot of change up with any service, any distance. It's probably not ideal. And I've learned this over the last 5 years, 6 years that I've been in, mixing it up with ultras and trail and mountain running. So, you know, there's that as well. All right. So final takeaways. Comrades is an amazing event. Highly recommend it. Being there in the culture, the running, the tradition, it's a humbling experience and just a really cool event. And, you know, congrats to all the finishers out there. Again, thanks to everyone that's cheering along. I heard a lot of people say they'd watch the YouTube channel or they, you know, sent in the video clips. So thank you. Thanks to the Patreon supporters again for making this all possible. And, I did take a couple of days off after the race. I went to Cape Town real quick. Didn't get to spend very much time there. Actually had to fly back a day earlier than I originally thought, and it was a 36-hour trip back. And of course, I do feel bad for all the emissions, carbon emissions, and horrible pollution from those long plane flights, because they were very long plane flights. I didn't spend an extra day in Frankfurt like I planned anyway, but I did get to spend one day there on my way there, and I really enjoyed the trip. It's a big luxury to have this international travel. Thanks to title sponsor Hoka One One for really making this possible, as well as all you guys and the Patreon supporters again. But yeah, I feel bad for the pollution, because one of the things I saw in Cape Town, south of Cape Town actually, was the African penguin. And I'll run up the clips here of my adventures watching the penguins, seeing the penguins, being inspired by nature and animals. It's a big thing with me and the environment. And I learned that these penguins are endangered from overfishing, as well as things like global warming, which is the real race of our lives, we should say. These are really important things. And again, coming off as a hypocrite here, because I've gone on these international plane flights, but I think, you know, believing in your diet and things you eat, and looking at the whole life cycle process of products and how we consume things like water. Being in Cape Town, you know, there's the water shortage, and but you want to conserve these things always in all parts of the world. And you know, it's a big factor with pollution and these poor animals, African penguins, endangered, really suffering at the hands of a lot of man-made types of things. Again, I feel like I should donate to some get a carbon credit or pay a carbon tax or something for those long plane flights. But yeah, it's just trying to bring attention to that problem and global warming, climate change being the real race, the real ultra of our lives, and something that we really have to all attack aggressively right now, because it's something that's a big part of what could be a big challenge in the future. So again, the environmental spiel there. But yeah, I love Cape Town, the trail running community. I went to the Tuesday trails, informal type of group run. Got to see some of the more of the trails. I also ran the contour trail beneath Table Mountain on another day, but seeing the trail running community in Cape Town, it was an amazing community, super cool, relaxed, adventure. We went out at night, ran on these trails. You could see the footage there. This group's great because after the run, everyone sits back and has a beer, and it's very social and a really nice time, enjoyable, but super accomplished trail runners in Cape Town. A lot of people in South Africa as well, have done Comrades, but they also do trail ultras. And of course, Cape Town having 2 oceans is a big road race there, one of the greatest ultras in the world. But Ultra Trail Cape Town, an amazing line. If you've been to Cape Town, you look at like Table Mountain and was it Lion's Head, and I don't even know the trails that well, but it's a stunning skyline really above the beach and the ocean and this pristine natural environment that we're trying to keep pristine, especially for the African penguin. Sorry, I really love those animals. But, a great experience there. A really great vegan scene, plant-based scene, a lot of good food options, big city amenities. So, spent some time in Cape Town. Still want to go back. Now I got to go back. Got to redeem myself at Comrades. Going to run some more trails in Cape Town, other places of South Africa, I'm sure. Very beautiful. It's a very large country, and of course, a very long trip for me to get there. But just really enjoyed my experience there and met a lot of really cool people along the way, even at like the airport and stuff like that. So thank you so much, guys. The running communities, the generosity and the kindness is really inspiring to see, and it's really connected us all, I think, internationally, just the whole sport and trying to improve your health, improve yourself, enjoy our time on Earth here, and trying to bring awareness to environmental causes, I guess, as well, or having some meaning in our running, I think is really important. So thank you guys again. That was my Comrades wrap. Sorry, this video is extremely long. If you're still with me, thank you again from the bottom of my heart for subscribing on here, liking these types of videos. Hope your running's going well, and stay tuned for more.